W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. I wanted to talk quickly of my experience with my partner, who was the mother of two adult sons. She's not the only one that I've had that was in covert emotional incest. I was married to another woman who was in covert emotional incest with her son, which is where I learnt all my information and knowledge through experience with this horrible, destructive relationship destroying problem. And what happened was, and this is, well, what happens is these people want companionship, and so you meet them, and you begin the relationship and you become enmeshed. Now what you've got to understand is these people are brilliant at enmeshing you into their life. Initially these people are brilliant at enmeshing you into their lives. But as you go along in the relationship, the cracks start to appear. You start to mention things that you're seeing. But what I found in the last one was they just didn't seem to stop. And you start to become like a scratch record, like a complainer, and you don't want to be that way. It brings, actually, as a matter of fact, if you know what covert emotional incest is, and you find yourself trying to deal with it, it'll bring out the worst part in you. Because you run out of patience, you run out of answers, you run out of temperament, you become frustrated, exasperated. It really does do a number on you. But what the problem with it all is, you become enmeshed yourself. And then what happens is, when they start to realize that this is a relationship that's not going to work because there's too many objections from your part, they'll they try to stay, but they don't fix anything. Now, it's not that you've brought it to their attention, haven't brought it to their attention, because we had some tremendous talks about what was wrong and what the possibilities were of fixing it. But what happens is, when you're saying things that need to be fixed and they're not being fixed, then you'll find that the person starts to withdraw. Now, in my instance, the woman and I, while we were left alone, we were doing really well. We were seeing each other 5 times a week, a night off here and there. There was no trouble. But behind the scenes, because she lived with the 2 sons, behind the scenes there was a lot of covert emotional incestual manifestational negative behaviour taking place. He started to grumble that his mother was not paying enough attention to him. 23 years old. He started to grumble that his mother was neglecting him because of the new partner, which was me. He started to intercept and interfere with the arrangements we were making. He started to pull at his mother's time. And she was aware of this, but she was enabling it. And this is what you've got to understand. This was the clincher for me. When I realised that the domestic formation that had taken place to create the covert emotional incest in the first place was coming out of the hatred towards men from the mother, although she needed men. Well, it appeared that way to me. At the start, of course, until they get their supply, and then you start to become of no value. You're just a necessity that can sit on the side until they're ready for their next supply. When I realised that she was the one that had formed these boys into people that would blatantly tell you, we do not like middle-aged men. Well, when they said that to me, I just thought, well, I'm not here to bother with you guys. That's your problem, not mine. But the problem that I had was they lived with the partner that I'd chosen. And she was proud of her sons. They didn't have licenses. They were drug addicts. They depended on her like little children. She depended on them emotionally. They were her security blanket for anything that might go wrong because of her behaviour or lack of commitment. These people know exactly what they're doing and what's up ahead. They're just not prepared to make the right decisions to make anything work or last outside of themselves. That's why you'll find them in little tribes, or you'll find them isolated, away from everything. But when you're an outsider and you come in, oh, they're gonna critique you, and they're gonna test you. They want to make sure you're a good person. Well, you know what? What I've learned, I think you need to start with yourself. Start by looking at yourself before you start trying to judge somebody else. I'd come into her life with a complete clear slate, ready to go on and attempt to have a great relationship. Well, when the 23-year-old started to show severe infantile behaviour towards his mother because of the relationship, because he didn't like the fact that her attention was now being catered for and met by another person besides himself, because covert emotional incest sets the partner up as a surrogate, the son up as a surrogate partner. And that's what she'd done. Now he became incredibly jealous and hostile, covertly hostile towards me, and I would imagine her. I don't know what used to happen to her when I was not there, but what I do know is he put on such a performance that she came to me and she said, well, my son's told me, and it sounded pretty desperate, that I'm neglecting him because of you. And I stood there and I thought to myself, does she want me to go? Because that's the kind of language that's going to cause me to leave. Now, to this day, I don't know if that was a hint, whether what she was trying to say or what that meant, but the relationship disintegrated from that day on because her attention had turned back to her default, which was the golden child, the son. Because if he didn't get his way, he'd put on an act. And he put on act after act after act, like a little spoiled baby boy. I'm talking about a young adult man. I'd never seen anything like it. I'd seen covert emotional incest before this, but nothing like this. Now, then it goes into the loyalty. You can't break the loyalty of it, because then, oh, he might not love me anymore, or oh, he might commit suicide. This is how deep the manipulation and domination and intimidation goes. So we split up. I said, no, I'm not coming second fiddle to this bloke, this brat. And we split up. We get in contact about a month later. I didn't really want to be the person to swap and change, but I thought maybe she's pulled things into line. We lasted 3 weeks. And she says to me, oh, I've got to be home when so-and-so gets home because of so. I thought, oh, I said to her, hang on a sec, if you're not home, what's going to happen? Is he going to have a breakdown? Is he going to have a tantrum? Because the problem was I wasn't going to her place anymore. She was coming to mine. She was coming to mine and hadn't told her sons that she was doing that because of whatever reason, I don't know. That said to me a lot. That said to me a lot, that this situation's so far out of order that this woman's the child of her sons, the sons of the parents, and she's the child, which was it was a big turn off for me. Very big turn off. It was horrible, actually, to think that I'd gotten so deep into something that was so dysfunctional and unfulfilling. It was just horrible. I said to her, who are you emotionally attached to? Because you're emotionally feeding me nothing. I've got nothing. I'm getting nothing from you emotionally, and the physical part of it was no different to anybody else. And she said, I don't know. I said, I knew. It was the 23-year-old son. She was going home and emotionally bonding with him. So lucky I was aware of all this, because I was able to nail it really quick. When she come back and she said, no, I've still got to be there for so-and-so and so-and-so, I thought, hang on a sec. And I said to her, you're only coming here for my masculinity, and you're going home and living out the rest of your life with them. And I said, you're gone. That's it. Finished. These people will waste your time. They'll cut you back. They'll put you into a breadcrumb relationship and have no conscience of it. They don't care if you're going to sack them or get rid of them or let them go. They will stick with their covert emotional incest despite all else. So what they do is they suck you in, and they hope that the enmeshment that they create in your heart locks you in hard enough for you to put up with their breadcrumb relationship abilities. It was the shortest and most backward relationship I'd ever had. And if I hadn't had the skills and years of experience to know how all this works, I could have ended up a very, very damaged man. And I say that with all seriousness. They come in, you're the king, you're the golden fleece, you're this, you're that. And then when they get their supply, and the ones that they're bonded to are saying, come back, in infantile behaviour and dysfunction and bad behaviour, they go back, because you're only an add-on. You're only a temporary add-on until the batteries run flat, and then they'll just go find somebody else. They're not trying to build anything substantial, because there's no room for that. All their person's tied up within themselves and the son, or themselves and the mother. A lot of women find themselves on the end of these men, and they are narcissists, because anybody that thinks they can judge somebody and all this other rubbish, and they've actually got no intention of accepting that person at all, that's narcissism to boot. And you'll know they're narcissists, because once it's exposed and you go, I'm sorry, but you've got to go and take all your stuff with you, you don't hear from them again. There's no fight, because they default back to where they're secure, where they can hide, where they can feed their lust, emotional lust, with their sons or their mothers. That's what they do. There's many different ways, combinations of this, but you don't hear much about the way in which the mother behaves. They are like a black widow spider. They use you up, and then at the end they think that they can condition you to a breadcrumb relationship, and you can stand there and you can try and explain what's going on as kindly and as nicely as you can, and you'll just be ignored. You'll get what they'll say, what you want, they think you want to hear, but there'll be no change. You become exasperated, frustrated, unhappy, unfulfilled, unsatisfied. That's how you end up. Meanwhile, they're feeding their lust, their emotional lust, between themselves and their sons. And if there's drugs and other stuff involved, they'll sit there and use all that. And then there's all the other stuff that comes with it, all the real degenerate behaviour that comes with it when they're not with you. It's just built-in behaviour that people fall into. So I'm not one to do breadcrumb relationships. I just don't do it. If you try that with me, you're going down hard. You're straight out the door. And that's unfortunately what happened. So I've never been clearer and I've never been happier. I've never been clearer and I've never been happier. It's a shame because I did like the person. You have to cut your losses. You just have to, because they're just, if somebody's not building something with you in a relationship, and this will happen a lot, they'll come along and you've got to be aware. And they'll bust the door down and they'll start pulling themselves up on you and all this other stuff. If you're not on your game, you're going down. Remember, she's not yours, just your turn. That's right, Don. You're a bit of a woman expert actually with some of your comments. That's right. You're exactly right. And you know, I don't want to live a life where I'm just somebody's turn. I want to get to the end of my life and be able to stand at a woman's grave or wherever you end up, or her at mine, and go, I did love that person and I gave my best. But these new values that have crept into our societies and communities and world, they're nothing like the old values. There's not enough resilience and fortitude anymore in these new values. It's really horrible. People think they can treat you half-heartedly and you're just going to stick around. I'm sorry, not in my world. No. Because if you don't want to be half-hearted yourself, why would you put up with somebody that's half-hearted? Why would you put up with that? So covert emotional incest is what it comes back to. Its first word in the title, covert. It is supreme in its secrecy. It's supreme in the way in which it hides itself. But because of the frustration and the sadness and the neglect that it causes, it gets exposed and you end up on your own anyway. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Thanks for your comment, Don. Hope you're well. Bye for now.